What is the creepiest thing that's happened to you personally that made you question reality? One morning I woke up to my alarm going off at 6:30 as usual and got up and cooked breakfast. As soon as I sat down to eat, my alarm went off again and I woke up in bed. I dreamed that I woke up and went about my morning routine. That was easily the most disorienting thing I've ever experienced. Once woke up to the sound of heavy breathing and felt as if I was being watched. I couldn't move for a while either. Then I just blurted out my dog's name and kept calling for him. He didn't run over. And as soon as I could get myself to move I went looking for him. Found him sitting in the kitchen doorway, just staring straight forward. I started calling him from right behind him and he wouldn't even turn around. Then I touched his back and he turned to glance at me, but went right back to his trance. A year or so after the fact, I found out that the first thing was probably sleep paralysis. Not too sure about what was going on with the dog though. My friend was about to clean his gun and it was pointed directly at me when it went off. For a few seconds we stood there in shock. Him thinking he killed me and me in a state of pure panic. Afterwards we found the bullet embedded in a wall beside me. I will never let him live that shit down. How many beers have you got out of him for the incident so far? Not necessarily creepy, but definitely made me question reality. I used to work in a gas station. One regular customer was like night and day. One day he'd be soft-spoken and shy. The next he'd be obnoxious. His cigarette preference also changed from day to day. But he always came in the same work truck with the same guys at the same time of day. One day, he walked in and went straight to the bathroom. A minute later, he walked in again and came to the counter. Twins. It took me 8 months to realize they were twins. And not even identical twins, either. They just looked really similar. Similar story but completely different. I got Chipotle for lunch today. When I got to checkout, the same girl who started my bowl was there. I made some crack about how fast she was to beat me there, and she looked confused. I commented on how she started my food, and now was finishing it. She laughed and pointed at her sister at the beginning of the line. My wife and I had a 2-hour drive back from St. Louis to our home during which both of us lost time. Woke up 3 hours later still an hour and a half away from home only having used enough gas to go that half hour and our GPS showed we had been driving our normal route. We still have no fucking idea what happened but we know we hadn't pulled over and that neither of us had any memory between taking an exit and seeing this ONW particular billboard for a restaurant we always pass. Still freaks me the fuck out. Deleted. Little did you know that your so had selected you from that picture and become obsessed from afar. There was an old man who lived on the road I drove every day to get to the highway. He sat on his front porch drinking his morning coffee. And he always waved at me when I drove by and I always waved back. This went on for the better part of a decade. One day I was talking to my neighbor about how much Mr. So-and-so waving made my morning awesome and I was glad he was still kicking around. My neighbor says wait what? He has been dead for 3 years. Never saw him again. Who was I waving at? Edit. Thanks for the silver and in response to a few questions. I asked my mom later that day, didn't tell her why because my mom hates spooky stories and won't even watch scary movies, if Mr. So-and-so had died and he had in fact been dead for 3 years. Dead Tennessee man's brother found posing as him and freaking out local commuters. After my grandpa died there was sightings of him throughout the neighborhood and everyone said he was smiling. Day 1511, they still think I'm a ghost. I had 2 bananas. Connected at the stem part. Broke them into 2. Ate one. Threw out the peel. Came back for the other one and it's gone. I live alone. Either I have a rotting banana somewhere in my act or I've gone crazy. Update. It's been weeks. Haven't smelled the other banana. I'll accept that I just went bananas for that moment. Check your loft for monkeys. Woke up to my granddad stood by the door staring at me. Scared the shit out of me and there was a flash and he was gone. He's been dead about 7 or 8 years at that point. I asked my mum, she said yeah he often did that. He'd wake my nan up for work by knocking on the window. Mum dead grandpa stared at me through my door today. Yeah he does that. I was driving back home at night a couple of weeks ago and I passed a sign that stated a town was coming up. This town is 10 miles from my hometown. The sign said it was 10 miles. So I continued driving. I drive 10 miles. Don't see the exit. Look up and see the sign that said the town is 10 miles away. It was like I hadn't moved. I went past the same exit again too. No one believes me. P.S. Didn't know my highest rated Reddit comment would come from this, face with tears of joy. There's a book with this plot line. How some roads in America slip you into another time or place. If I remember what it was called, I'll post back. Sounds exactly like what you described, so it might be fun for you to read it. Edit, as posted by Coldwater Tits, LOL, below. It's Paradox bound by Peter Kleins. Edit again, thanks for the gold. My Reddit friend. See a dream and the next day it becomes reality. Even little details like the clothes me and my brother wore. I get this kinda shit too. Weird things I'll have in a dream, then it happens within the next few days. Stuff like someone saying something specific or other stuff that's slipping my mind ATM. At least 6 times in my life I've gone home. I know I'll lock the door, but when I'm about to put my key in, the door opens like someone was expecting me but no one's there. It's happened at my mom's house, my house, and other PPLS houses. I was helping my buddy move into his new house, and when we came back with more stuff I had to pee, so I ran to the front door and it opened. When he came in he said he locked it before we left. Don't know what it is, but maybe it's a superpower. Lazy telekinesis. Nice. Deleted. 2 days after my grandmother died. The scent of her favorite perfume just filled the bathroom. Lucky. My uncle clogged a shitter a week after he died. One night I was on Stephen Hawking's Wikipedia page and I thought to myself, damn. He looks a lot worse. What if he died tonight? Next morning I wake up to Stephen Hawking dead. You killed the old bastard. I had a terrible dream when I was 10 and I called my mom to come lay with me and we passed out, I guess. I woke up staring at the back of head. Her hair looked exactly like Michael Myers. I said, Mom. She turned around and it was her, but holy shit, I'll never forget. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Groovy baby. I've watched The Ring back in 2003 or 2004. Parents were out and it was late. I love horror movies and generally I am not the one who is frightened. A couple of minutes after the movie ended the landline rang. 2 a.m. in the middle of the night. Landline had no display or whatsoever. I tentatively answered but there was no sound. Nothing. I hung up and my heart was almost bursting out of my chest. A few moments later it rang again. Was my aunt asking where my mum was? Man. These moments I was like, that cannot be. And X200B. Edit. Since a lot of you are asking. Was nothing to worry about. Aunt and mum have a sleep disorder and apparently it was almost daily business to catch up. I didn't know since I'd normally be sleeping at that hour. 7 days. Till Black Friday. There were 2. The first one was a UFO. I saw a light streak across the sky. Make a 90-degree turn and streak away until it vanished. Years later I learned that it was probably just an asteroid breaking up. Put that one to rest. And X200B. Once. When I was about 8. We were driving along a road in the backcountry. And I was staring out the window. And in the distance in a field I saw the silvery green glowing cloud that was completely unnatural. It suddenly moved. Almost ran. Towards the road, then up a tree just as we were passing it. As we climbed a hill. I saw it drop from the tree onto the road and float back into the fields. I've read theories about clouds like that being swarms of insects glowing because of electrical fields around them. Kind of like the St. Elmo's fire phenomenon that can occur. I have no idea if that's true. But could explain the cloud that seemed to move. I'm the type of person who keeps my bedroom door closed and locked all the time. No matter what, even if I'm home alone. So like a year ago. It was 1 a.m. and I had decided to get a glass of water before going to bed. After coming back in my room I swore that I closed and locked my door. After about 30 minutes of me dozing in and out of sleep, I suddenly felt all the ambient noise completely dissipate and immediately got that something feels off feeling. I got up and saw that my door was wide open. It scared the shit out of me as I was home alone. I've just chalked it up to being a one-time mishap on my part. Talking with my son when he was 3 or 4 years old while he was playing with a Darth Vader toy in his mom's lap. Talking about the Wiggles or Barney or whatever. Completely unprompted. He said nonchalantly, "Dingo cold. Dingo cold." And goes back to playing with his Star Wars toys. I asked him what he said and he denied saying anything with a giggle. My wife very clearly heard him say Dingo cold too. I never told him about my childhood best friend, Dingo, being killed in an avalanche 10 years earlier. I'm debating on ever having kids now. I always remember this and do not have an explanation for it. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, I remember waking up in the middle of the night and walking to the stairs. I remember closing my eyes for a second at the top of the stairs, and when I opened them I would be at the bottom of the stairs. I would run upstairs and close my eyes and the same thing would happen again. It happened at least 4 or 5 times until my parents called me to go to bed because they could hear me run up the steps. It's weird because I was wide awake and do not have a history with sleepwalking. I still think about it and wonder how that was possible. I was playing with our dog in the living room. At the time I was around 9 years old. We were doing our usual only play like this when mom isn't home else she'll tell us to stop type of playing. So basically playing fetch in the living room. At one point I threw the toy which caused it to ricochet out of the living room into the kitchen. Franz, our dog's name, chased it and disappeared around the corner to get it. At that exact moment the front door opened and mom walked in with Franz on a leash after a 2-hour walk over the beach and dunes. I tried to explain, but can't. I played with him for at least 15 minutes in. Apparently. My imagination. But I just don't believe that. When he's such a good boy he learns how to astral project to play with you while he's away. Sleep paralysis. A few years ago, I was dreaming I was talking to a friend of mine. So far, nothing weird. But then, for some reason, I realized that I was in a dream and the person I was talking with technically wasn't my friend. Suddenly, their appearance turned to black and I felt them pushing me down and holding me down in my bed. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. At this point my cat woke up and jumped on me as if to protect me. Then, the dark silhouette or whatever that thing was vanished and I woke up. I swear I had red marks my shoulders where that thing was holding me down in my dream. Almost the exact same thing happened to me except I was face down in my bed and nothing woke me up except time. Yikes. It's horrible. It feels like you're about to die or dragged into hell or something. My cat hated me for the first 7 years we had him. He was a feral that was tamed by my wife, and only accepted affection from her. My wife assured me that this was common for ferals. Then one day he suddenly warmed up to me, and wanted me to pet him. We've been best friends ever since. This was approximately 4 years ago, about the time that my wife's brain cancer was becoming aggressive. Even before we were aware of it. She died 2 years ago. It's like he knew it was just going to be the two of us one day. She died 2 years ago. It's like he knew it was just going to be the two of us one day. I am so sorry for both of your loss. In 1984. I was 14. Was on a ferry heading to London. I was talking to some guys from India. They said they were going to kill Indira Gandhi. Few months later she was assassinated. I think about that from time to time. You think it were the assassins you spoke to or just a coincidence? She was killed by her bodyguards. There's pictures of them online. Maybe you recognize them. Either way, odd thing to happen. Cheers. Premonitive dreams. Mostly as a child. Growing fewer and further between. Until they stopped in my early 20s. The last I had was dreaming about the death of someone I cared very dearly about. A day later they drowned. That one affected me so badly that I think something simply switched off in my brain. And I no longer have premonitive dreams. I do, however, trust my intuition a lot in various circumstances. When I was 13, I had a dream that an intruder had broken into my house through an unlocked window next to my bed and killed my family. They left me alive. When I woke up the window next to me was open and I nearly shit myself. I grabbed my machete and slowly creeped to the bathroom. Nobody was in the house and it turns out that my father noticed it was really hot in my room so he opened the window in the middle of the night. Deleted. Moved into a house that is almost 100 years old. And after about a year of living there one day I was sitting alone painting some figurines when Alexa blurts out yes, Diana. It is Jimmy's favorite song and then proceeds to play Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Diana is the name of the lady who previously owned the house and has been dead for about 5 years. Jimmy was her cello-playing husband who, after Diana died, moved into a senior assisted living community. This is one of the creepiest. Did you check what it heard? I read that you can check the voice commands on Alexa. I spent 3 weeks in a coma, but didn't realize it. To me it seemed like many years had passed and I remember everything I did while in a coma. Woke up to realize that all those years weren't real. Been struggling with reality ever since. Not trying to fuck you up. But have you ever read the story about the guy and the lamp? https://www. Reddit. Glitch in the Matrix comments /30t9kd repost a parallel life awoken by a lamp? UTM source equals Reddit Android. A friend's mother and father passed away within a few months of each other when we were in our early 20s. While sitting in his living room, a mutual friend saw his dead mother go from the bedroom towards the bathroom, which was down the living room. She casually stared at him and walked through the bathroom door. He noped out of the apartment and sat on the staircase for a few hours, waiting for me and the homeowner friend to get back from work. It was in the afternoon and that guy is a teetotaler and was not under any influence. We sometimes did feel a presence around us, but that was the only sighting. I burnt about 10 filing cabinets full of papers for my high school friend's dad for less than minimum wage back in 2004. Literally millions of lines of words. Maybe even a million pages or close, just tossing them into a barrel burning. After a few hours, I victoriously tossed in the last folder. A little sprite of flame shoots out and a singed fortune cookie looking piece of paper floats to the ground in front of me with the words only. What burns does not return. I still don't know WTF. The probability just is astronomical. I was young, around 9, and my brother was 4. We were in our living room. He was in the middle of the room. And suddenly a fork that was on my couch just flew to him and landed in front of his feet. He laughed and I pretty much pretended it never happened. Little telekinetic bro telling you to fork off. Sometimes when I'm playing with dad, he'll throw a ball for me to catch. I lose sight of it and can't catch it. So I take off to look for it in the grass or in the bushes. I search and can't find it. But when I look back at dad, the ball is still in his hand. I can't figure it out. It's the creepiest thing. Are you cernometrics out? I'll preface this by saying I don't buy into the whole ghosts or spirits thing, but when I think back to this, it still freaks me out. I wasn't really tired, but I had work the next morning, so I lay down and closed my eyes. Not 2 seconds later I heard someone whisper my name in my ear very clearly. I was so freaked out I wouldn't dare open my eyes because I didn't want to see anything. I rolled over and pulled the covers over my head, falling asleep eventually. I don't live with anyone else and I'm out in the country. I've had this happen too, where I hear someone say or whisper my name when I'm totally alone. I even posted it here before and someone said it's common to hear things like that before you're completely asleep, even when you think you're fully awake. I was sitting in my room, just doing stuff on my computer, when I suddenly heard a loud explosion. I swear the floor and windows were vibrating too. It scared the living shit out of me. The weird thing, however, my cat didn't really react to it. She kinda looked around, but didn't seem scared. She normally is terrified of loud sounds. I asked my mom downstairs and she had not noticed anything either. It still confuses me to this day. Anytime I have deja vu, I get it for major events in my life and it makes me wonder if everything we do is decided already. Every time I get the deja vu feeling I always think it means something bad is going to happen. So I'll often try to break it by doing something unusual. I had it a few weeks ago in the shower, so to break it I turned the shower to cold and stood under it for 10 seconds or so, as it's not something I would usually do. Only mildly creepy, but definitely made me question reality. Me and a friend were sitting about in my room playing video games etc. when out of nowhere there was this insanely loud pop. My ears were ringing, it was so loud. We both instantly looked at each other thinking one of us had caused it, but neither of us have a clue what happened. It sounded as though it came from thin air in the middle of the room. It's not even that creepy, but the first time it happened was the first time I've ever considered that anything supernatural might be real. Very occasionally at my desk at work I hear breathing in my left ear. There's a wall behind me, a window to my left, but you can't hear any outside noise. I don't feel a breeze or anything. I just hear it. It's peaceful and sad, like a sigh. My first thought was air conditioning, but it's such a clear sound that just cuts through everything as if it's coming from a whole different world to the general office noise. It's very definitely only in my left ear and I never hear it anywhere else. Every time it kicks in I very calmly just get up and leave my desk for 5 minutes, and when I come back it's gone. Pulsatile Tinnitus. I have 2 wireless mouses. One for a work laptop and one for my personal laptop. When I let things get messy, I usually just stack one laptop on top of the closed one underneath, with both mouses near the mousepad. Okay. So, I get a call from work saying I need to hop online. I open the work laptop and grab the mouse and start opening my work portal. I open email. I do my usual routine. Everything works fine. Then, I realize that I'm using the mouse connected to my personal laptop on my work laptop. I shake the mouse. No response. It stopped working once I realized that it shouldn't be working. Ever since then, I've found it hard to believe that we don't live in some sort of a simulation. At home sick reading these stories and starting to get a bit freaked out from reading some of them. All of a sudden I notice a chilly white cloud around my face and have a mini heart attack. My new humidifier is so quiet I forgot I had it on. I once had the weirdest dream. It was like 3 years ago, yet I remember it clearly, which is weird knowing how bad my memory is. Anyway, it was a big black room. There was a huge TV on the wall which had white static on it. Staring at the TV were 2 men in fully black suits with white shirts. One had long blonde hair and the right one had dark black hair. In this dream it was like I was only watching like an movie. I did not have a body. Suddenly one man says, "But then her brother will die," to which the short-haired guy silently nods. The same day my mother comes home crying, telling me my uncle has committed suicide. I do not believe in ghost and faith, so I still question this dream today. Sitting alone as a young guy in the living room. Empty house with no one home. I'm holding a big cup of soda in my lap watching TV. When an unmistakable voice, strong and clear but only in my head, tells me to pour the soda into my lap. I was like, well, that's a strange stray thought to have. But then it said it again and I felt my hands tipping. Next thing I knew I poured the soda into my lap. I'm sitting there for a second staring at the ceiling wondering how big an idiot I am to actually do this. When I look down, my lap is completely dry with no soda residue. And my soda cup is empty. I know, not that exciting, but I wish I knew what had happened. Had a dream where my boss hurt his back and he couldn't work that day. He came out with his shirt off and informed me that I would still be working that day. He was a slave driver, so that didn't surprise me. I wake up from the dream and head to work. A buddy picks me up and we drive to his house. I told my buddy about the dream and we both laughed, knowing my boss would probably do that. I knock on the door and no one comes. But I heard the garage door open, so I walked over to see if he was in there. He opens the door with no shirt on and the exact same conversation I had in my dream unfolds in front of me. Word for word. And no one would have even believed me had I not told my buddy a moment earlier. Just tonight, like 2 hours ago, was having dinner with mom at some restaurant. After she ordered dessert from the waiter, I told her I've seen this scene before. And the waiter says the item is not available. Indeed. Just seconds later, waiter comes back and apologizes. Said item is not available. Can anybody explain déjà vu? Does anyone remember the Redditor who was in an accident? Went to the hospital. Recuperated. Went home. Fell in love. Got married. Got a job. Had kids. Lived a full and meaningful life. Only to wake up from a coma that was the result of the original accident. Their whole life was a coma fantasy dream. None of it really happened. Link. Edit. Word. Crazy experience I had with a friend back when I was 12 or 13. I've asked around and no explanation anywhere. I was standing at a campsite near a wood line playing tag with my friend when all of a sudden we both heard something shift around in the woods. We looked over to see a perfect circle that was pitch black in the woods. It literally looked like some Rick and Morty type shit, like a portal to another dimension. It was just pitch black. We looked at each other and back at the hole, and then it just closed and the woods went back to normal. We've probably never ran faster in our lives away. We still talk about it to this day. I get double signals daily. My GF would send me a random text typo like MJ, and later I'm playing a game and it says MJ just beat your score. Or I hear a song from 1970s Japan. And later that day a friend that doesn't give two SHTS about Japan or that kind of music would say, "Hey, I just hear this song. Do you know it?" Again. This happens daily. When I was in my early 20s, I was fresh out of the closet and lived in the India Quarter. I started getting hang-up calls from someone, presumably a hookup. After a few months of sporadic calls, someone showed up outside of my window at around 2 a.m. and started blasting a tape recording of me saying, "Hello? Hello?" Then drove off. I was on my way to pick my girlfriend up from work after leaving school. I get on the highway. Everything's cool. Bright, pleasant day. I know my commute is only 30 minutes because of GPS. In my frame of reference, I was only driving for a solid 15 minutes until I get a phone call from my "So, where are you? You left school over an hour ago?" I look around me and just get completely lost. Which is weird because I've always been great with directions. Then I realize from maps that I am an hour and a half past my SO's job. I have no idea where that extra hour went. It's not a good story, but I once met the same person 5 times in a row. I was at a train station and there was a guy next to me waiting for our train. It was a black Rasta reggae guy with a bright smile in a jumpsuit. 1 minute later, one of the station staff asked me to step aside to clean the floor. It was a Rasta reggae guy with a bright smile in a jumpsuit. In the train there was a train stuffer, and guess what? It was Rasta reggae guy with a bright smile in a jumpsuit. At my stop I took a cab to my hotel and the driver was a Rasta reggae guy with a bright smile in a jumpsuit. Since then I am convinced that the black Rasta reggae guy with a bright smile in a jumpsuit is one of God's NPCs to fill in the void. Deja vu is happening quite a lot to me. Some scene or dialogues I'm having and I'm like, WTF, I dreamed about it a while back and it's happening. At least twice a month. Moved into a new house and was half asleep at 2 a.m. when I heard a heavy breathing noise coming from my closet. I got up and opened it but didn't see anything, so I went to my little sister's room since that was the adjoining wall, and she got up and followed me after I found nothing there. In my room outside my closet we both stood there listening to the noise. Like a man breathing in and out of his mouth until it finally stopped. I told her it was probably water coming off the roof and catching in the clogged gutters and rolling off the aluminum siding. She went to bed and I waited for another hour for a demon to appear and roast me. First grade. We lived in an early 1800s farmhouse. Awoke one night to my mother holding back one side of the curtains on my window, looking out at the full moon. I asked her what she was doing. No reply. Mom. 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 Silently. She turned to look at me. Not my mother. And X200B. Mom. And X200B. Light in my parents' bedroom across the hall snapped on as my mother stepped into my room asking what's wrong. As I looked over at the window, the curtain was just falling back into place. And X200B. And X200B. I knew then that. From time to time. There is some bleed through. And X200B. And X200B. I walked into a bathroom at a Walmart. Went pee. Walked out and I was in a Target. As a kid I woke up half asleep and could have sworn I saw an elf. Made me believe in them till 10. In my country there is a popular belief among the people that birds flying into the homes bring bad news. And X200B. Circa 15 years ago, when I was visiting my parents, a small bird suddenly flew into the closed balcony of my sister's room. One of the windows was not properly shut and there was a narrow opening just enough for the bird to get in. We had to open the window wide to let the birdie out. 10 or 15 minutes later we received a phone call from my uncle saying that my grandma died. This has happened more than one time. I go to bed after a bad day, usually sick. I enter panic mode as I feel like my heart go crazy and out of rhythm. Makes me think that if I fall asleep it'll just stop beating. Then I wake up to the news that someone I loved has died. Happened with grandma, a professor, and today my dog might be taken to be put asleep. I went over to my parents' house to visit one day. When I got to their house, I noticed a man standing nearby. I didn't think much of it. But when I got out of my car, he started talking to me. He was talking about intergalactic war and such. So I figured him to be drugged out of his mind. That was until he called me by name. And told me that the princess has been looking for me. And they needed my help. I figured he just saw some mail or something. And that's how he got my name. But I didn't live there and my parents had their mail delivered to a mailbox. Not their home. He kept asking me if I could see the princess. And I couldn't. I've always wondered what happened to that guy. And if some people engaged in an intergalactic war are still looking for me. I dreamed of a short old lady on brown dress with long black hair standing next to my bed facing my closet. Never told anyone. Then after a week, my nephew who is 9 is playing on our desktop computer near my room. He said he saw a lady walk out from my room. Old lady with long black hair on long brown dress. I slept over on my friend's house for a week. After I came back to my room, I always tie a rosary on a corner of my bed. Whenever I wake up in the morning I always find the rosary on the floor.